Isabella had always believed that the perfect dish could heal any broken heart. But standing in her grandmother's empty restaurant at midnight, surrounded by foreclosure notices and unpaid bills, she realized that some recipes required more than just the right ingredients. When Marcus Kane, the food critic whose scathing review had destroyed her reputation 3 years ago, walked through her door asking for help with his own failing restaurant, Isabella faced an impossible choice. She could seek revenge on the man who had ruined her dreams, or she could discover that sometimes the most bitter enemies make the sweetest lovers, and that the secret ingredient she'd been missing all along was forgiveness. Before we dive into Isabella's delicious journey through the world of haute cuisine, second chances, and the recipe that could save both their hearts, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you more captivating romantic drama stories every week. Now, let's discover how one midnight encounter changed everything for Isabella Santos and the food critic who broke her heart. Isabella Santos had inherited more than just her grandmother's restaurant. She had inherited a legacy of love, tradition, and the belief that food could bring people together in ways that words never could. At 28, Isabella was one of the youngest head chefs in San Francisco, having taken over Abuela Rosa's kitchen when her grandmother passed away 2 years earlier. The small family restaurant in the Mission District had been serving authentic Mexican cuisine for over 30 years, building a loyal following through Rosa's recipes and Isabella's innovative interpretations of traditional dishes. But Isabella's culinary dreams had been shattered 3 years earlier by a single restaurant review that had appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle. The review had been written by Marcus Kane, the newspaper's most influential food critic, whose opinions could make or break restaurants throughout the Bay Area. Marcus's review of Abuela Rosa's had been devastating, describing the food as uninspired, the service as amateurish, and the overall experience as disappointing and overpriced. The review had appeared during Isabella's first month as head chef, when she was still adjusting to the enormous pressure of running a kitchen and maintaining the standards that her grandmother had established over decades. Isabella had been experimenting with new menu items, trying to bring her own creative vision to the restaurant while honoring her family's culinary traditions. But Marcus Kane had visited on a night when everything had gone wrong. The new sous chef had called in sick, 2 servers had quit without notice, and Isabella had been trying to manage both the kitchen and the front of house while preparing a complex new dish that she hadn't fully perfected. Marcus's review had been more than just criticism. It had been a complete dismissal of everything Isabella had worked to build. He had questioned her qualifications as a chef, suggested that she was trading on her grandmother's reputation without having the skills to maintain it, and recommended that diners avoid Abuela Rosa's until the restaurant could find more competent leadership. The impact of Marcus's review had been immediate and devastating. Reservations were canceled, regular customers stopped coming, and Isabella watched helplessly as the restaurant's reputation crumbled. Food bloggers and other critics seemed to take Marcus's review as permission to pile on with their own negative assessments, creating a cascade of bad publicity that Isabella couldn't overcome despite her efforts to improve the food and service. Over the past 3 years, Isabella had worked tirelessly to rebuild Abuela Rosa's reputation and financial stability. She had refined her recipes, hired better staff, and created new menu items that showcased her growing skills as a chef. The restaurant had gradually regained some of its former customers and attracted new ones through word-of-mouth recommendations and positive reviews from smaller food blogs. But the damage from Marcus Kane's review had been too severe for Isabella to fully recover from. The restaurant was barely breaking even. Isabella was working 16-hour days just to keep the doors open, and she was facing mounting pressure from creditors who were threatening foreclosure if she couldn't bring her loan payments current. Isabella had considered selling the restaurant several times, but she couldn't bear the thought of letting go of her grandmother's legacy and admitting defeat to the critic who had tried to destroy her career. Isabella's financial situation had become desperate enough that she was working alone in the kitchen most nights, unable to afford the staff that would allow her to maintain consistent quality and service. She had been experimenting with new recipes late into the night, hoping to create dishes spectacular enough to attract the attention of critics who might help rehabilitate the restaurant's reputation with positive reviews. It was during one of these late-night cooking sessions that Isabella's life took an unexpected turn. She was working on a complex mole sauce that required hours of careful preparation when she heard someone knocking on the restaurant's front door well after closing time. Isabella's first instinct was to ignore the interruption, but the knocking was persistent and urgent enough to suggest that someone might have a genuine emergency. When Isabella opened the door, she came face to face with the man who had haunted her nightmares for 3 years, Marcus Kane. He looked older than she remembered from the few photographs she had seen of him, with gray streaks in his dark hair and lines around his eyes that suggested he had experienced his own share of stress and disappointment. He was dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like the powerful critic she had imagined him to be. Marcus appeared surprised to see Isabella, as if he hadn't expected her to be the one to answer the door. He apologized for disturbing her so late and asked if they could talk privately about a matter of mutual importance. Isabella's first impulse was to slam the door in his face and refuse to have anything to do with the man who had tried to destroy her career. But something in Marcus's demeanor suggested that he was genuinely troubled and in need of help. Against her better judgment, Isabella invited Marcus into the restaurant and listened as he explained why he had come to see her. Marcus revealed that he was facing his own professional crisis that threatened to end his career as a food critic. He had been accused of accepting bribes from restaurant owners in exchange for positive reviews, and while the accusations were false, they had damaged his reputation and credibility within the food industry. Marcus explained that several restaurant owners had come forward claiming that he had solicited money or other favors in exchange for favorable coverage, and that his editor at the Chronicle was considering firing him pending an investigation into the allegations. Marcus insisted that he had never accepted bribes or compromised his integrity as a critic, but he admitted that his harsh reviewing style had made him numerous enemies, who were now eager to see him fall from grace. Isabella listened to Marcus's story with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Part of her was pleased to learn that the critic who had destroyed her reputation was now experiencing his own professional downfall. But another part of her was intrigued by the vulnerability and desperation she could see in Marcus's face and voice. Marcus continued his explanation, revealing that he believed the accusations against him were part of a coordinated campaign by Vincent Moreau, the owner of several high-end restaurants throughout San Francisco. Marcus had given consistently negative reviews to Vincent's establishments, criticizing them for prioritizing style over substance and charging exorbitant prices for mediocre food. Vincent had apparently decided to retaliate by orchestrating a campaign to discredit Marcus and end his career as a critic. But Marcus's reason for coming to Isabella was even more surprising than his story about the false accusations. He revealed that he was planning to open his own restaurant as a way of proving his expertise and integrity to the food community. Marcus had been working as a critic for 15 years, but he had trained as a chef earlier in his career and believed that running his own kitchen would demonstrate his genuine understanding of food and cooking rather than just his ability to critique other people's work. The problem was that Marcus had no recent experience running a kitchen, and he needed someone with proven skills and creativity to help him develop a menu and establish the high standards that his restaurant would need to succeed. Marcus had researched Isabella's background and recent work, and he believed that her talent and dedication made her the ideal person to collaborate with him on his new venture. Isabella was stunned by Marcus's proposal. The man who had destroyed her restaurant's reputation was now asking her to help him create his own culinary success. The irony was overwhelming, and Isabella's first instinct was to refuse his request and send him away without any assistance. But as Marcus continued to explain his vision for the restaurant, Isabella found herself intrigued by the creative possibilities of the project. Marcus wanted to create a menu that combined innovative techniques with traditional flavors, exactly the kind of cooking that Isabella had been trying to perfect at Abuela Rosa's. He was offering to pay Isabella a substantial fee for her consulting work, money that could help her catch up on her loan payments and save her grandmother's restaurant from foreclosure. Marcus also made an offer that Isabella hadn't expected. He promised to write a new review of Abuela Rosa's that would be fair and accurate, based on the restaurant's current quality rather than the problems that had existed 3 years earlier. Marcus admitted that his original review had been harsher than necessary and that he regretted the damage it had caused to Isabella's career and reputation. Isabella asked Marcus why he was willing to help rehabilitate the reputation of a restaurant that he had previously criticized so severely. Marcus explained that his years as a critic had taught him the enormous power that his opinions wielded over people's livelihoods and dreams, and that he had come to regret some of the more destructive reviews he had written early in his career. Marcus told Isabella that he had been watching her work from a distance over the past 3 years, visiting Abuela Rosa's anonymously several times to sample her cooking and observe her progress as a chef. He admitted that Isabella's food had improved dramatically since his original review, and that she had developed into the kind of talented and dedicated chef that the restaurant industry needed more of. Isabella was torn between her desire for revenge against Marcus and her practical need for the money and positive publicity that his offer could provide. She told Marcus that she needed time to consider his proposal and that she would give him an answer within a week. Over the next few days, Isabella wrestled with the decision of whether to work with Marcus or continue trying to rebuild her restaurant's reputation on her own. She consulted with her closest friend and sous chef, Maria, who encouraged her to accept Marcus's offer, despite the personal history between them. Maria argued that Isabella's pride was less important than saving the restaurant that employed several people and served as a gathering place for the local community. Isabella also spoke with her uncle Roberto, who had worked alongside her grandmother for many years and understood the restaurant business better than anyone else in her family. Roberto advised Isabella to judge Marcus's current offer based on its merits rather than on past grievances, pointing out that successful business relationships often develop between former adversaries who learn to respect each other's skills and dedication. After much deliberation, Isabella decided to accept Marcus's proposal with specific conditions designed to protect her interests and maintain her professional dignity. She would work with Marcus as a consultant on his new restaurant's menu development, but she would retain complete creative control over her contributions and would be credited as co-creator of any dishes that incorporated her recipes or techniques. Isabella also insisted that Marcus write his promised review of Abuela Rosa's before their collaboration began, ensuring that his assessment would be based on a genuine evaluation rather than gratitude for her assistance with his own project. Marcus agreed to all of Isabella's conditions, and they began working together on what would become one of San Francisco's most innovative and successful restaurants. The collaboration between Isabella and Marcus began tentatively, with both of them maintaining professional distance while they developed the menu for Marcus's restaurant, which he had decided to call Synthesis. The name reflected Marcus's vision of combining different culinary traditions and techniques to create something entirely new and exciting. As they worked together in Marcus's test kitchen, Isabella was surprised to discover that Marcus was actually a skilled and knowledgeable chef whose understanding of food went far beyond his abilities as a critic. Marcus had trained at culinary school in his 20s and had worked in professional kitchens for several years before transitioning to food writing. His technical skills were rusty from years of disuse, but his palate and understanding of flavors were exceptional. Isabella found herself enjoying the creative process of developing new dishes with Marcus, whose different background and perspective challenged her to think about food in new ways. Marcus encouraged Isabella to experiment with techniques and ingredients she had never used before, while Isabella helped Marcus reconnect with the physical and emotional aspects of cooking that he had forgotten during his years as a critic. As their professional collaboration deepened, Isabella and Marcus also began to develop a personal relationship that neither of them had anticipated. Marcus proved to be intelligent, funny, and surprisingly humble about his mistakes and shortcomings. He was genuinely remorseful about the damage his review had caused to Isabella's career, and he worked hard to make amends by promoting Abuela Rosas to other food writers and industry professionals. Isabella discovered that Marcus's harsh reputation as a critic was partly the result of his own insecurities and perfectionism. He had set impossibly high standards for restaurants and chefs because he had been afraid of being seen as too lenient or easily impressed. Marcus admitted that he had often written negative reviews when a more constructive approach would have been more helpful to both the restaurant and its potential customers. The relationship between Isabella and Marcus was complicated by their professional history and the ongoing business partnership they were developing. Both of them were aware that their growing attraction to each other could potentially complicate their work relationship and damage the restaurant they were trying to create together. But despite their attempts to maintain professional boundaries, Isabella and Marcus found themselves spending more time together outside of work, sharing meals and conversations that had nothing to do with their restaurant project. They discovered that they shared similar values about food, family, and the importance of using their skills to bring joy and nourishment to other people. The romantic tension between Isabella and Marcus came to a head during the final week before Synthesis was scheduled to open. They had been working 18-hour days to perfect the menu and train the kitchen staff, and the stress of the impending opening had made them both emotionally vulnerable and honest about their feelings. During a quiet moment in the kitchen after the staff had gone home, Marcus told Isabella that working with her had reminded him why he had fallen in love with food in the first place. He said that her passion and creativity had inspired him to become a better chef and a better person, and that he was grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with someone whose talent and integrity he respected so deeply. Isabella was moved by Marcus's confession, and she admitted that their collaboration had helped her grow as a chef and gain confidence in her abilities. She told Marcus that she had initially accepted his offer primarily for financial reasons, but that working with him had become one of the most rewarding experiences of her culinary career. Marcus and Isabella's mutual confession of feelings led to their first kiss, which took place in the kitchen, surrounded by the dishes they had created together. The kiss was tentative at first, both of them aware of the professional and personal risks they were taking, but it quickly deepened into something passionate and meaningful. Over the following months, Isabella and Marcus navigated the challenges of maintaining both a romantic relationship and a business partnership. The opening of Synthesis was a tremendous success, with critics praising the innovative menu and the seamless collaboration between the two chefs. Marcus's reputation was rehabilitated, and the success of his restaurant proved that he understood food as a creator, rather than just a critic. Isabella's involvement with Synthesis also brought renewed attention to Abuela Rosas, which benefited from the publicity surrounding her collaboration with Marcus. Marcus wrote the promised review of Isabella's restaurant, giving it the kind of thoughtful and positive assessment that helped attract new customers and restore its reputation within the San Francisco food community. The financial success of both restaurants allowed Isabella to pay off her debts and invest in improvements to Abuela Rosa's that made it more comfortable and efficient for both staff and customers. She was able to hire additional help, expand the menu, and create the kind of warm and welcoming atmosphere that her grandmother had always envisioned for the restaurant. Marcus proposed to Isabella on the one-year anniversary of Synthesis's opening, presenting her with a ring during a private dinner featuring dishes they had created together during their collaboration. He told Isabella that she had taught him that the most important ingredient in any recipe was love, and that he wanted to spend the rest of his life creating beautiful things with her. Isabella accepted Marcus's proposal, knowing that their relationship had been tested by the challenges of working together under intense pressure and had proven to be strong enough to withstand both professional and personal obstacles. She realized that their initial antagonism had been based on misunderstandings and hurt feelings that had been healed through honest communication and mutual respect. Isabella and Marcus were married in a ceremony that reflected both their professional partnership and their personal commitment to each other. The reception was held at Synthesis, with a menu that combined dishes from both of their culinary backgrounds and showcased the creative collaboration that had brought them together. Their wedding became a celebration not just of their love for each other, but also of their shared commitment to using food as a way of bringing people together and creating joy in the world. Isabella and Marcus continued to operate both restaurants, dividing their time between Synthesis and Abuela Rosa's while maintaining the distinct character and mission of each establishment. The chef's secret recipe for love had turned out to be forgiveness, understanding, and the willingness to see past first impressions to discover the genuine person underneath. Isabella and Marcus's story became an inspiration to other people in the food industry, proving that even the most bitter professional rivalries could be transformed into collaborative partnerships when both parties were willing to approach each other with honesty and respect. As they settled into married life and continued to build their culinary empire, Isabella often reflected on the journey that had brought them together and the lessons she had learned about judgment, forgiveness, and the power of food to heal even the deepest wounds. She had discovered that the most important recipes were not just about combining ingredients, but about combining hearts, minds, and dreams in ways that created something more beautiful and nourishing than either person could have achieved alone.